Hey everyone, so today's video we are going to be talking about Obsidian by Jennifer A. Armentrout. So, first of all, let me just get this out into the world. I really enjoyed this book. I would probably give it an 89 or a 90%. It was really enjoyable. Like I said in my last video, whoever said that it was like Twilight with aliens was right. There's so many connections with this and Twilight, and it's kind of crazy. I mean, I'm not trying to say that Jennifer's stealing Stephenie Meyer swag or whatever, but it is similar. If you guys aren't a big fan of Twilight, or if you guys definitely aren't a big fan of Bella from Twilight, then I don't recommend you reading this book. Even though Katie, which is our main character, she's our storyteller, she's a lot more interesting than Bella is. She does book reviews on her blog, and she does book hauls sometimes, and it was just so fun to read. This book was just all around a really fun read. If you are in a morning period, then I definitely recommend you pick this one up. It was so fun. Like I said, it's just fun to read. The one thing that I really liked about this book, I mean, the dialogue was okay, the setting was okay, but what I loved about this book was how realistic everything was. Like, it felt like I was in this story, and honestly, you don't feel that a lot, and it's probably because you can feel the emotions that Katie's feeling so strongly. Whatever Katie's feeling, I'm feeling too. There was a lot of tension between Katie and her love interest, and that was really tense to read, and sometimes I just had to stop reading and put the book down. But yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed this. If you guys are wondering what it's about, like I said, Twilight with aliens. It's about this girl. She moves to a small town. Her neighbors are aliens. And yeah, things just escalate from there. That's it for the non-spoilery section of this review. Hope you guys go and pick this one up. I got the special collector's edition one, which has both Obsidian and Onyx. I'm gonna be getting Consequences soon too, so it will match. But if you haven't read this book, then I recommend leaving now, because I'm gonna dive into Obsidian spoilers. So first of all, let me say that I haven't read Onyx yet, because I don't like doing book reviews or discussions already knowing what happened in the sequel. Like, it's not as fun to me, you know? I plan on reading it after I edit this review and I find it good enough. So I guess we can start when Katie goes over to Daemon and Dee's house, and she sees Daemon and he's shirtless. And before we even talk about their conversation on the porch, can we just say that shirtless Daemon reminds us of Jacob so much. Like, Daemon is basically a mix of Edward and Jacob in this book. I mean, you guys remember in the movie, I think it was Eclipse, but Edward was at his car and he was kissing Bella, and then he looks over at Jacob and he's like, doesn't he own a shirt? And the same thing happened in this book, except Katie said it, and I find it so much funnier because, you know what? Edward was so dull, and these characters are so bright and lively and so fun to read about. So anyways, Katie meets Daemon on the porch, and for like 5 seconds she's just sitting there like, and I felt so bad for her. I was so embarrassed for her. Like I said about the feelings, anytime that Katie did something embarrassing or said something embarrassing, I automatically felt embarrassed for her too. And she's just staring at Daemon for a while before she starts like stuttering and stumbling over her words. She's like, yeah, I was grocery store, and yeah, flowers, garden outside, and I need to find the grocery store. Do you know where it is? And I felt so bad for her. But it was so funny. And if you guys can hear my wheezing, that's because I just got home from a track meet, and let me tell you, it was hard. And I mean, I really liked Daemon and Katie's relationship. It was kind of gradual, but more in this book, it was kind of on and off, hot and cold. Like, I'm guessing that it will be gradual in the next book. But I like how it wasn't just insta-love like most, well, I shouldn't say like most YA books, but like most YA books. Like, most YA books, the main character and the love interest instantly like each other, at least, and then they grow from there. But here, they hated each other, and they weren't friends. And honestly, I kind of miss their bickering and their arguments, because I doubt I'll see that as much in the next book, and it's kind of sad because that made me laugh a lot. And then we have this scene when Katie goes to the library library, and then outside there's that a rum guy and he needs like some type of card tool, and Katie's like, oh, I have it. No, it is dark. It is nighttime. No, we do not have time for this, Katie. No, do not give him the thing. If he really needs it, then he'll go and get it himself. Get in your car, mind your own business, go away. I know he probably would have attacked you anyway, but it's still, Katie, what are you doing in the middle of the night like that? And then when they're in the hospital, Katie's like, oh, he said something pretty peculiar about how finding them and how he needed to find them, and I have no idea who he's talking about. He must have been crazy, right? Come on, Katie. There's only 2 people that you know in this town. Of course, she's like, yeah, I don't know who you're talking about, Kate. And then we have this Bella line. This is the part where I started to get annoyed with Katie because she was all like, oh, well, he has these piercing green eyes and he's super fast and he stays underwater for long amounts of time. He's always there at the most convenient moments and he's always lurking around and he knows everything, but he must be human. She still comes to the conclusion that he's human until like the end of a chapter somewhere when she's like, things aren't right with Daemon. And I'm like, thanks, Sherlock Holmes. I think we figured that out now. Because by then, we already know that he's an alien in this book. Everybody knows that Daemon is an alien. It says it on the back cover. So waiting for Katie to figure out it was torture. The thing is, at least Bella figured it out herself. She waited for Daemon to tell her everything. And she didn't come to any conclusions on her own. And also, we have that scene when she runs away from Daemon once he stops that truck. Another Twilight thing is when she gets in front of the truck and he stops it. And she sees him and she just stares at him for a while and then she just runs away like he didn't just save her life. Like, yeah, I think he owes you an explanation. Why are you running away? And then when Daemon explains it to her, he's like, we're from far, far away and we traveled millions of light years to get here. And she's like, what are you, vampires? Like, how do you come to the conclusion that there are vampires who have traveled from a different galaxy and traveled millions of light years to get to Earth? And I love it when Daemon just looks at her and he's like, are you serious right now? And then things start to get interesting. There's this dance. Dee picks out Katie's dress for her and it ends up being red, and then she tells him later that red is Damon's favorite color. And I'm just kind of curious about how Dee knew that red was Damon's favorite color, because it's not like he was really in any serious relationships, so I'm just kind of curious about that. Was there something really going on with him and Ash? And Ash is another thing. Can we trust her? Honestly, I was thinking near the end of this book that Ash was gonna report Katie to the Department of Defense just because she didn't like her and that she spilled spaghetti on her, which was a really stereotypical high school moment, but you know, I enjoyed it. And then we have this whole Simon line. He was kind of irrelevant and I didn't really care about him, but yeah, he ends up like almost raping Katie in the forest, and then Daemon goes and saves her. And then something that really, I was so done with him, and I'm still not completely 180 on Daemon yet. I'm just kind of like a 90 degree. I'm almost there to a different perspective of him, but he still really annoyed me in this book, particularly when they need to get that glow off of Katie and then they made out and then he's like, you barely have a glow anymore, and then he picks up his shirt and leaves. I was so, you don't even understand how mad I was at that moment. Like, I slammed the book and I like threw it. I was reading on my bed because that's usually where I read, and I threw it on the other side towards my bookshelf, and some books just started flying around and everyone came in and they're like, are you okay, Tiffany? And I was like, no, this book, and it just, it made me so mad. Bottom line. Then let's just skip to this final scene here when Dee and Katie are at the house and they're watching movies, and then Daemon calls Dee and then he's like, oh, the rum is heading towards you guys' house, so watch out. Katie, being the genius that she is, comes up with this, you guys can't wait to listen to this plan, right? She gets Dee to glow up and become her true form, and she turns into like this whole light, and then Katie like absorbs the light and now she's glowing like a Christmas tree. And she goes and she drives out into the forest, and then she's talking on the phone with Daemon, and that was probably my favorite scene of them talking in the whole entire book. The line goes off and she sees the rum and she was like, oh, gotta go, Daemon, gotta deal with this. And she still has the obsidian, but kind of turns out to be a one-time thing with Katie being cool and kicking some rum butt. And he's like literally about to kill her, and then Daemon comes, and Daemon was about to die too, and then Dee comes, and Dee was about to die too. What I understood from this was that Daemon like turned into this huge light, and there was this whole light thing going off, and then it touched Dee, and then it touched Katie, and then this whole lightning bolt, and it just killed him, is what I'm thinking here. I don't know. And then the very last scene in the book, Dee and Daemon were together, and then she's like, what? We have the same heartbeats, which is a really weird scene because you can't really... Anyways, she's like, we have the same heartbeats, and he's like, what had happened was... So I'm curious, like, what did Daemon do to Katie? And also, that scene with Daemon, and he's like holding Katie, and he's like, no, I can't lose her, I can't lose her, and it made me so nostalgic for a second because it reminded me of the end of Clockwork Angel with Will Herondale. I was crying because it reminded me of it. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this book review. I enjoyed talking about this book. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!